Hey, this video is already way too long, and I never got around to recommending shows that one should check out. If you've not checked out the 88 tour, any of the releases that I name, check those out first. They're all fantastic. They're all worth hearing. It'll give you a very, very good sense of everything that's on this tour. But in a couple days, I will come up with what I think is a pretty solid list. There's a lot of really, really good shows on this tour, and you can't really just randomly pick one because the set lists are so drastically different from night to night. Definitely one of the strengths of this tour, but I apologize for not doing that now. You'll see why if you make it through half this video, but I'll post it in a couple days. All right, thanks. Enjoy if you watch. All right. I just spent way too long talking about the 1988 tour, and not once did I mention secret words. Secret words are when something happens in the audience or before the show or during the show, and all of a sudden Frank and Ike and Bobby and anybody in the band start injecting that word into their lyrics or changing the lyrics, or, taking a topic and freestyling on that topic by changing the words. You can hear a prime example of this on You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 3, the Bobby Brown, Keep It Greasy, with the references to Hi-Ho Silver, the Lone Ranger, the Lenny Bruce routine, Masked Man, all that stuff. But secret words on the 88 tour run rampant, especially in Europe. And they're usually pretty funny, and they make a lot of shows a lot more interesting than they otherwise would be, because you know the song, but now you're not sure what the lyrics are going to be, and it's almost kind of fun to predict where they're going to insert jokes, and they're usually pretty good with keeping things interesting and fresh, and you can tell they're having a good time. So that is another great positive of this tour, that in the 30 minutes of rambling that follow, I somehow failed to mention once. So yeah, secret words on this tour are awesome. So yeah, sorry for missing that. On to the video. Hello people, my name is Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, currently ranking and reviewing all the Frank Zappa tours that he played during his lifetime, the 26 that I have deemed rank-worthy and review-worthy. Trying to remember what number I'm on. I know which one I'm going to talk about, I just forgot what number this was. And out of the 26, moving towards number 1, we are now on number 1988. Feeling I'm going to take some heat for this one, or I have a lot of people disagree with me, which obviously we all have the right to do. And so, but in trying to come to this was probably the hardest one I've had to sort of confront so far, is where to put the 1988 tour, because there were a lot of things I absolutely love about this tour. Make a Jazz Noise Here, which is a 2 CD document of this tour, has some of the jazzier, more improvisational stuff, a lot of instrumentals. I think that was it was one of my top 10 all-time Frank Zappa releases during his lifetime, the 55. And if I were to do a top 20 of the 110 that have been released, it would be in the top 20. The other 2 documents, The Best Band You Never Heard in Your Life, which is from this tour, which is more song-oriented and guitar solos and a lot of covers. That was, I think, in the teens. In the original list would probably be in the high 20s. They released a complete show from this tour, the last US show of 1980, March 1988. That ended up at number 28 on the official list. I think it would probably be, or maybe 27. It was somewhere in the middle. It would fall farther behind in the complete total list, I think, just because that upper half of the ZFT releases is a pretty strong, a lot of good stuff in there. And then Broadway the Hard Way, which is a lot of the new songs from this tour, is much farther down the list. So the point of all that was, I really, really, really like some of the material released from this tour. Kind of don't like some of the material released from this tour, and the complete show that was released kind of falls somewhere in the middle of the pack. It's not a pact. That's my just kind of overall opinion about 1988 going into this. And then also way back in the 90s, I and several others, John Noren, Pat Busby, Charles Urich, I think was involved, Bill Lands, we set about listening and reviewing to every single 1988 show in order. I think we did it on the anniversary of each show, like maybe the 10-year anniversary. But we listened, we had, between all of us, I think acquired almost every single show on tape. And we listened to them all in order for 4 straight months, and it was pretty exhausting. But the neat thing I realized about that I think has just reinforced the obsessiveness of being a Frank fan or a Dead fan or a King Crimson fan, is even when you get to like May, you know, which is February 2nd is the first day, do a bunch of shows through March 25th. There's a 2-week break, and then you have April 9th all the way through June 9th. Even when we got to May, the shows in Europe were starting to get really good and really engaging, and Frank's guitar playing was starting to get more interesting. And like, even after this steady of like listening to shows night after night, there was still some stuff that was like, oh, this is some really good stuff. But on the whole, this tour, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's impressive. The horn arrangements are impressive. Some of the things, I think Stairway to Heaven, spoiler alert, so just plug your ears for 20 seconds if you haven't heard it. Frank's arrangement of Jimmy Page's guitar solo as an orchestrated piece for the horn section is one of the most genius things anybody's ever done with a piece of music. That's just an inspired decision right there. I don't know who did the actual transcribing. It was probably Tunis or Keneally, but it was Frank's idea. So, you know, there were so many moments like that where just the arrangements are friggin' ridiculous. But in a weird sense, the tour kind of feels like a Las Vegas review. Like you're going to Vegas to see Zappa. And yeah, Zappa's still like running the show. And yeah, some of these people have actually been in his band for like 6-7 years, 10 years in the case of Ike Willis. But it feels like it's just this big, over-the-top, spectacular review. We got a 5-piece horn section. We're doing songs going all the way back to Freak Out. We got some new stuff, which is political. We got some fun cover songs. We're doing a Beatles medley. It's got a very, like, celebrating your career vibe. And maybe that is exactly what Frank was doing. He knew he didn't want to tour anymore. He had discovered the synclavier. He just wanted to make music. He was going out with this big over-the-top show. He's going to do as many songs as possible. This tour by far has the most different songs played over the course of it. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And it's really enjoyable. But if I were to create a rubric for each of these tours, which I have not done, when I sat down and started this project, like the bottom 4, I knew about the top 5 were pretty solid, and I didn't really have many questions up through number 10. But like 11 through like 21, it was like, how do I qualify and quantify these, and why is this better than this? And, you know, what is it that makes me like want to listen to this more than this? And it pretty much all came down to Frank Zappa's guitar playing. What I thought of his guitar solos on any given tour. Even if like the set lists were completely different and the vibe of the band was completely different, it still kind of boiled down to Frank's guitar playing. It's readily obvious in 73 and 74 because I have 6 different tours from that time period, and the rankings of those tours are pretty much how good I think Frank's guitar solos are, essentially. But I will argue for other points when I make those videos to make it interesting. But here, the guitar playing is just not that good. It's not bad. It's Frank. It's still highly engaging. But I think the issue is that there are certain shows where at the end of the shows, you're like, oh, what did he guitar solo in? And you can't really remember the specifics of like what his solos were. For me, the release that came out from Zappa Family Trust earlier this year, the last U.S. show, 88, Long Island or wherever, I think it was Long Island, right? That last show, it's a 2-set show, and the first set has 3 spectacular guitar solo vehicles. The Black Page New Age version, Inca Roads, Charlena. The second set has some more, but 2 of them are The Torture Never Stops and City of Tiny Lights. And personally, when I listen to the first set, I have a hard time remembering the specifics of what Frank does in the Black Page or in Inca Roads or in Charlena. I don't remember them being bad, but I also don't remember them having any particular moments that made them stand out from others. Both times, and I just re-listened to this show a couple days ago, when I listened to The Torture Never Stops and City of Tiny Lights, I wanted to go back and re-listen to the solo, like just to like get that experience again, because there were so many moments in each of those solos that were just different for 88 or definitely stood out from the rest. The City was ridiculously aggressive. The Torture was really a lot more kind of fragmented than a lot of Frank's 88 solos. And then, yeah, so no, just that release. This other solo, I'm going to talk about something else. But yeah, and that was exactly my problem with the 88 tour. A lot of forgettable solos that while you're listening to them, you're not bored, but you kind of forget about them 2 solos later, mixed with 35-40% of the solos, which are just like, this is fantastic stuff, man. You need to do this more often. But those fantastic stuff things are not solos that are good enough to say put on Transfusion, even though Transfusion, which is a guitar solo only release, has a bunch of solos from 88. I think a lot of those Transfusion solos are really good solos, but none of them can compare to like an Inca Roads from 79 or a Inca Roads from 74 or a Torture Never Stops from 78 or Black Page from 82 or a Zoot Allures from 75 or 76 or a Y. There's a lot of songs on that list and a lot of tours. Any Dupree's Paradise from 73 or 74, a lot of songs on that list. There's no single guitar solo vehicle in this tour where you're like, you need to check out all those. Actually, there is one, and I'm going to get to that. It's not what you would expect it would be, but I'm going to argue that there is one song that is worthy of many releases being. But like the best songs from those past, all those that I just named, I think the Inca Roads are frustratingly anemic, maybe. They just are not what you're looking for in Inca Roads, so they kind of just feel underwhelming. And then there's that new ending on Inca Roads where they slow it down, I don't like. So that doesn't help. Black Napkins on this tour, when Frank soloed in Black Napkins, there were usually a couple horn solos, which are interesting, but Frank's solos could not compare to, anything he would do in like 75 and 76 or 77 or 78 or any other time he played Black Napkins. That's another one, the Black Page, New Age version. One of the most best reasons that this tour needs to exist is that arrangement of that song. But even the best solos from this version can't compare to those 82, just let's play with the loops and vibes involved and we're just going off the grid completely. It's those crazy 82 solos. So yeah, there are good solos. But we're not achieving just sort of legendary status as we did. And so I haven't even talked about the tour yet, and I'm 10 minutes into this video, but I'm trying to defend why a show which on the surface looks so incredible and perfect and spectacular is maybe, I'm not going to say it's shinier and it's just we're distracted by the bright lights, but I do think that like there's a Dweezil Zappa plays Zappa. I was not a big fan of Zappa Plays Zappa when they started. Loved the idea, supported Dweezil 100%. But when I went to see them, I felt like I was watching a cover band play Zappa songs. And it was every time it was Dweezil's turn to guitar solo, you could tell he still wasn't really sure what he wanted to say or do. Incredibly technical, skilled guitar player, but he was trying to play Frank's music and kind of be true to Frank. And you can definitely see over the years how he has melded Frank's style and his style into a voice that I think is uniquely Dweezil's. And when he gets up and he solos, whether it's in like a something that's just in your face, aggressive and unbelievable like Zombie Wolf, or he's actually giving you a speech about his father and then playing something like a Black Napkins or Watermelon and Easter Hay, and you can feel that emotion and you're actually like invested in the guitar solo, and it doesn't feel like, oh no, we're here for the song and the solo will never be Frank, but we have to have a solo. It's like, no. Like, I'm excited to hear the song, but I'm even more excited to see what Dweezil's going to play. Like, I'm again invested in like the emotion that this amazing arrangement of the song has. My problem with the 88 tour is you can't invest emotion into the songs because the songs are almost perfectly performed every night. You don't This is such a tight band, 5-piece horn section. There's a percussionist, there's a guitar player, there's another guitar player, there's Frank's on guitar, Bobby Martin's doing keyboards, and I think sometimes playing saxophone too, so you have 6 horn players. I'm assuming Bobby Martin played sax on this also, but maybe not. He probably did not. That would have been a waste of time. You have a tight band, so you don't get a lot of real strong emotion coming through the music, and Frank needs to provide that during his guitar solos, and he kind of doesn't. However, there's a lot of really good horn solos on here, and saxophone solos, and trombone solos, and the improv is crazy, and that's really good. And if you listen to Make a Jazz Noise here, you can hear some of the best examples of this improv. It's not really long 5 and 6 minute solos like you would get from like the saxophone player in 75 and 76, or Jobson on violin, or even a Tommy Mars solo, which would go on forever. You don't get these really, really lengthy solos where Frank's sitting on a stool, smoking a cigarette and listening. These are like, the soloist is soloing while Frank's conducting the band, and then like maybe he'll give them like a minute at most where it's uninterrupted by some flurry or burst of activity. Probably there are stretches where you get maybe a good, like a Black Napkins has longer solos. Some of the Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecues were calmer and had longer solos, but the solos are chaotic and a different kind of improv. Excellent still, but it's not like Frank's letting these musicians really just take over for long stretches of time before his cigarette's done and he like conducts them through something else. It really is a lot more where he's more invested in everything that's going on. There's a lot more noises. Synclavier patches are being shot in, and it's all over the place. A little more chaotic, but excellent. But again, we're going back, talking over and over. This is a great tour. It really is. It's just the guitar solos. It's going down the guitar solos. So this is who's in the band. You get Ike Willis. He's still around since '78. Was gone for a while in the early 80s. Mike Keneally on guitar, keyboards, does the Johnny Cass impersonation on the Ring of Fire. Scott Tunis and Chad Wackman are your rhythm section, bass and drums. If you want to know why this band eventually broke up, apparently half of that rhythm section, the bass side, he was also the guy in charge of sort of leading the band through practice before shows when Frank wasn't there. Apparently he did not get along well with the jazz players and played the wrong notes and wouldn't play the right jazz notes, so the horn players didn't like him and Tunis didn't like the horn players. And apparently there was a lot of infighting and people took sides, and that's why the band never resumed its U.S. tour after Europe. So Ed Mann is back on percussion. He was gone in 84. Martin is still around on keyboards and vocals. And then you get Bruce Fowler, Walt Fowler are returning on trombone and trumpet. And then I think Walt Fowler plays another type of horn. Paul Carmen on a bunch of saxes. He does the excellent saxophone solo, I think, in all the Inca Roads. The Inca Roads second solo is back. Frank dropped it in 79, but now it's back as a really good like alto, soprano, sax solo, some high sax solo. Albert Wing is on tenor sax, and Kurt McGettrick is on baritone sax, and some kind of clarinet. But anyways, also you have a whole bunch of guests during this tour. Moon, Dweezil, Ahmed, Diva, Mats Oberg and Morgan Agren, some Swedish musicians, I'm sorry, maybe Norwegian, sorry if I get the bad. They come out and they kind of jam on something, I don't remember what. My brother A. West gives a speech. He was an actor, wasn't a real televangelist. Eric Buxton, who I've hung out at Grateful Dead shows a couple times. He's on the 88. Couple other people come out. You get the dancing on the Long Island Ballet Company. Sting, of course, sings Murder by Numbers. That is a great moment. Some dude named Fabio comes out and plays harmonica. Claudia does on-stage dancing and many other. And there's other stuff I'm sure I'm missing. Whole bunch of shows. Frank's last show ever, June 9th, Italy and Europe. But yeah, so the best thing about this show was you had about this tour was you had a lot of songs that Frank played, and other than sort of getting stuck with a lot of the newer songs in the United States, he dropped them or played them much less frequently in the Europe leg, just because they were vocal heavy, and they weren't songs the audience was familiar with, and he wouldn't really get the political in-jokes, so why bother playing them, right? So he dropped a lot of them when he went to Europe. But in the U.S., you got a lot of the Jesus Thinks You're a Jerk, When the Lie is So Big, Dickie's Such an Asshole. And so That again was a little bit, maybe got repetitive after a while, because really, how many times do you want to listen to Jesus Thinks You're a Jerk? But still, there were enough different songs played. Like, it's just page after page of a number of songs that they played on this tour that were really good. And most all of these songs have been released on any of those albums that I named earlier. Make a Jazz Noise Here, Best Band You Never Heard, Broadway the Hard Way, The Last US 88 Show, Transfusion has a bunch of solos, Understanding America has a couple tracks, but those are also repeated elsewhere. So you have a lot of stuff from this tour out there. You get a good, usually a first set. I think he stopped doing the sets somewhere in the middle of Europe. You get a first set for about an hour, a second set that was a little bit longer. There usually be one or two monster songs in each show, like A Pound for a Brown, which is, I think, this is the most glorious, one of the most glorious of all monster songs. King Kong, Big Swifty was a monster song on this tour. Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecue returned. I think the Black Napkins had one monster song version where like everybody got a solo and things got chaotic. Desiccated, which that melody song that's on When Yuppies Go to Hell, that theme is desiccated. And then the rest of that I think is almost all from A Pound for a Brown on the Bus. What else and Stolen Moments got a little monster song jam at one point. And monster songs pretty much mean that like, it's not just like a Black Napkins where like you solo, then you solo, then you solo. It's where Frank's doing the conducting. You're not really sure who's gonna come next. Maybe they're dropping in some other classical quotes. It's like got an element of chaos in it. And I think any show in which the monster song is played, like those shows, like those tend to lift my experience. But again, the improv is a lot of times so over-conducted that you don't get this chance for a single musician to like express themselves for like 5-6 minutes at a time, which Frank allowed them to do in previous tours. Alan Zavad got that in '84, for better or worse. And he doesn't allow them, I think, as much freedom to like go out there and really express themselves. I mean, there's a lot of them to do it. And they do a lot with the short time that they get. I'm just trying to, again, justify why this is 19 and not Red Tire. But other than that, new songs that were on this tour, they did America the Beautiful, which you can hear. Any Kind of Pain is kind of new. You finally get, even though they referenced it a lot back in 75 and 76, you finally get like the full thing in its real form with the lyrics and the music. Elvis is Just Left the Building, all the covers that they did a a lot of covers on this tour. Almost everything has been released. I don't think there's much, any of the cover songs or new songs that were on, are out there somewhere. Songs that FC usually soloed in, but did not on this tour. Dupree's Paradise only got horns. There was no guitar solo in Dupree's Paradise. Eat That Question, which had a guitar solo on the album. Montana, yeah, no solo in here for quite a while, except for that week in '84. Packer Goose didn't get a solo. Got those like the Bartok and the Stravinsky pieces in the middle. And Sinister Footwear only got horn solos. I don't think Frank played a solo in Sinister Footwear too. But other than the songs that are out there that are officially released, again, the songs that have not, I think, for this being number 19 and for this having as much material out there as it does, I think there is justification for another release out there for a couple reasons. And these are the reasons. Oh, we're going to start off, this is in alphabetical order, these reasons, by song. Probably the best single guitar solo vehicle of this tour. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. It's Bamboozled by Love. Yeah, I don't like Bamboozled by Love. I like Danny Wally's guitar in like those early 78, 79 versions. I think Wally's interesting. I thought the '84 version was pretty atrocious. Though the Owner of a Lonely Heart intro using that vamp for the guitar solo is pretty funny. This is essentially the '84 version, but it works so well with horns. The Owner of the Lonely Heart vamp is still in the guitar solo, and Frank's solos are just ridiculously fun and rough and Steve Vai-esque and almost kind of pushing the envelope in like a Black Page #2 way from '82. Like the rhythm section never abandons that vamp and we don't go to these really deep, dark places, but Frank is within the confines of what that vamp is doing. Frank is really exploring and having a great time. And I just listened to a London show a couple days ago, which is out on YouTube. Really, really strong London show. And the Bamboozled by Love, I think, was the highlight of that whole show. Just amazing performance. So those are interesting. What else has not been released that we could use an official released version of? Man, a lot. There's an Illinois Enema Bandit, but I'm not sure was that on 88? I don't remember. King Kong, I just have to praise again because the King Kong is excellent. On the Make a Jazz Noise here, King Kong, Frank has Bruce Fowler talk about like his little fascination with dinosaurs, and they do that thing, and then he goes, I'm gonna play some out of 2 notes here, and he goes crazy. That was going to be a series of events called When the Horn Players Talk, and each of the different horn players was going to get a chance to sort of freestyle on the mic. Well, Bruce Fowler went first, and apparently after he did it, after that performance that you hear on Make a Jazz Noise here, nobody else wanted to do it because Fowler did it so well. Though Ed Mann does get a chance to do random rantings throughout the tour. Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up was played. I absolutely love live versions of that song, and I think that would be a fun song to hear released with the horns. Markison's Chicken was played, and this is one of those things that has grown on me over the years, but really, really bothered me at the time because I like Markison's Chicken. I like the vamp that's on Them or Us. But Frank, on the Europe section of this tour, which is when it first started getting regular rotation, it was played once in U.S., he inserted the 21 vamp in the guitar solo, which is the vamp that opens the Chicago 78. So all of a sudden you went to this, whatever that vamp is. I'm not going to count out 21. And then soloed over that. One of those instances where whatever momentum the song has, you've now just given it away and said, no, we're going to start over. On the one time they played it on the U.S. tour, it was the regular vamp, which was fantastic. And makes the song much better. I've gotten used to the 21 vamp over the time, and I think it's interesting, and it really does show you that Frank's really trying to do a little bit from every part of his career on this tour, including vamps that he opened shows with. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Markison's Chicken, I think you can release both the versions. Let's release a version from the U.S. Let's release a CD that's nothing but songs that have like I don't know. I don't care what you name it. That's not my job. But we can open with the Markison's Chicken from the U.S. leg, and then have like another 65 minutes of music, and then close with a Markison's Chicken version from Europe. So there's ideas. And then you can put a Bamboozled by Love in there too, and a Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up. And then you can also throw in another Pound for a Brown on the Bus, which is probably the best monster song of this tour. It generally had the most out there moments. Almost all of When Yuppies Go to Hell is from this. And a lot of the solos, like the Star Wars Won't Work solo and the Fire and Chain solo, at the end of like a King Kong or Pound for a Brown, Frank would play usually hit a loop that he had like pre-programmed prior to the show, and then you can hear instances of that in both of those solos. And then from there, the guitar solo would take off, and that would usually be how these monster songs ended when Frank decided to play a solo. Yeah, almost everything else has been... Oh, they played Willy the Pimp, and it kind of sounded like the horrible 84 versions, but there was one show in particular where it looked like they just kind of messed up the segue, and it just kind of went on, but Frank kind of improvised a little solo at the end of it, and it actually kind of sounds pretty good. So maybe that flawed moment that actually turned into like a good thing. Other than that, it's that horrible arrangement of Willy the Pimp. So yeah, Uncle Remus was performed, I think, 3 times on the U.S. tour. That would be absolutely awesome to hear a live version of Uncle Remus. This is complete proof that Frank knew this was going to be his last tour, and he was trying to play everything he possibly could. Yeah. So, yeah. Uncle Remus. Yeah, we need that release. Please, somebody release that. What else was out there? Easy Meat was played in Europe with the full-on dun 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 dun. Another instance of a song in which, after the majesty and like the expectations raised so much, Frank's guitar solos just can't quite deliver. I mean, 81 and 82 for that song were just... And Frank can't get there. Pick Me, I'm Clean, another song that's great to hear. He started to play this towards the end of the European tour. I think it's got the slower arrangement. There was a kind of a tempo shift. This was like one of the more ballady, slower arrangements. Again, Frank's solos don't do much, but it's another great song to hear. And that's about it, man. I think I covered everything. Everything else that this band played has been out there. This is almost 30 minutes long. I did something recently because I was having a really hard time trying to figure out which tour could come next. So I randomly picked a show that I wasn't really familiar with from the 3 tours that were contenders for number 19. And I listened to them. And the one I picked from here was like an early May Europe show. And it turned out to be a really good show, and I enjoyed it. The ones from the other 2 bands, I kind of knew almost exactly what the set list was going to be because those tours generally had the same set list every night. One of them, I predicted the set list exactly. There were no like extra songs or bonuses, or Frank didn't get weird. And then the first one, I knew all the songs. I just didn't get the order right because that was a tour that had songs. It was essentially the same handful of songs. Frank just mixed up the order. In both, as good as the 88 show was, in both of the other shows, there were moments where I was just like, whoa, that is fantastic. I forgot that this thing even ever happened. Like, it was just a breakdown in a solo where it just went off the rails, or just the solo was off the rails in a way that I just don't remember it being. But the 88 show, as solid as it was, and as good moments as it was, and as great moments as it has, as good moments as it was, as many great moments as it had a Bamboozled by Love, which was fantastic. There was nothing in there that was like, whoa, what? That just made me feel that way. So, yeah, 30 minutes on the 1988 tour, my number 19. I guarantee there's only one other tour I could possibly talk this long about. But yeah, lot to say. It's a good tour, man. It's great. Like, we're talking about Frank Zappa here. The other ones I've already talked about are really good tours too. You got to arbitrarily rank them, right? And that's my job, or that's what I've said I'm going to do. Thanks for watching. If you stuck around this long, you're crazy. That's it. You're simply crazy. All right. Thank you all for watching. Please share your thoughts about the 88 tour in the comments below. Peace, y'all. Take care. Bye. Subscribe.